What kind of robots are you expecting?
Well, service robots, like waiter in a restaurant. That's one of the things we are discussing in academy is that a lot of works will disappear and will be replaced by service robots because they are more efficient, they are more predictable, they are more easy to control, they are more standardized as well, so they bring less unexpected situations. And customers like the routine. They like to feel that everything is predictable. I don't want to be sorry. They don't want to be surprised. You go to a fast food restaurant, you know exactly what type of food you're gonna eat. You know exactly what is the price. No matter where you go, it could be in Toronto, Montreal, Paris, or wherever you want. If it's the same brand, everything is standardized, and that's what people like. I'm French. I used to go in France quite frequently, and when I observe my Canadian and American fellows in France, I feel that they're always speaking about the French cuisine and stuff like this. But the thing is that when they have a tour in Paris and they're tired, they are hungry, they go to McDonald's because they know McDonald's. It's safe. They know exactly what they will have.
Yeah.
So there are some minor cultural adaptations. You will find in France you will find maybe the Mac baguette.
Yeah.
So it's kind of Big Mac but with this baguette bread, and the cheese is also different. You will have like Comté or those stinky cheese that might be very weird for American people, but still you can have your French fries, the Coca-Cola, the burger you used to eat when you're at home. So this predictability is very comfortable for people, and those service robots bring this predictability. They are always smiling, they are always here, they are always working the same way, they are programmed to deliver the same service.
Yeah. I suppose people always see comfort, especially when they're abroad and away from home. You want some of that. But hearing you describe that, I completely understand the wanting comfort, wanting something predictable, knowing exactly what's going to happen. But I think a part of the beauty of humans and human experience is that there's a bit of unpredictability there, right? You sometimes you want to go and you want to be surprised by the menu like that. That's why people, for instance, may like to try different restaurants, or they'll ask their waiter or the chef, what should I have here? Because there is a part of us that has that innate curiosity that wants to explore and try different things. Um, so when we move into this sort of new technological world, how do we preserve that? Like, how does that still exist, or is there any room for it?
I think it's the distinction between niche market and mass market. I think the mass market is going to be more and more standardized for some reason. I'm not very happy with this reality, but that's my bet. I think that we go towards more standardization, and then yes, you will have like niche market when you can have different clothes, different food, different services from small companies who target small group of customers who are willing to have this different perspective, different experience. But I think for most of us, and it's still the case, we will have to deal with standardization. You want to dress, uh, you go to Zara or H&M. It's everything standardized. You want to eat, you go to the fast food. It's standardized. You want to buy a car, they're pretty much all the same. It's all standardized. You want to have an education and go to the university, it's standardized. It's the same program for everybody. It's the same courses, it's the same way to get graduated. So I think this is the society where we live. Everything tends to be standardized, and the automation and service robots and all of those applications is just increasing the standardization of those processes, because all the robots will provide exactly the same service to everybody. And one of the things is how do people will adapt to this new standardization, because me, we will have to learn how to deal with those robots. Uh, just a quick example. I took a flight last June to go to France, and it's been years that I didn't take a flight because of the COVID and so on. And at Pearson Airport, you have this machine when you have to use to register your language. So there is nobody to help you. You have to learn how to use the machine, how to print your ticket, how to print the ticket for the language, to register the language, to control that you make the good registration, that you will not lose your language, and so on. So you deal with the machine. And it's the same machine, the exact same process for everybody. And it's just an example of all of those machines and robots are coming to the market. to deliver standardized service and asking customers to work, basically, because you have to operate the machine. The machine can work only if you're here to, you know, push on the buttons, to put the luggage on the scale and so on. So you have to produce the work. And there is this debate in academic that there is difference between co-creation of value, which is the marketing discourse, and what we call prosumption. Prosumption is the contraction of production and consumption. You can consume something if you accept to produce it. So, as I said, you want to withdraw money, you have to operate the ATM. You want to order something to McDonald's, you have to use the automated self-checkout to select yourself the products and so on. You want to take a flight, you have to buy your tickets yourself on the internet, you have to put your luggage into the machine, you have to print the ticket board and everything. So you can basically consume whatever you want as long as you accept to co-produce the service.
Right. Yeah, it's been I suppose we've been on this path for a while now. And I can tell you, I've been at Pearson and everyone hates those machines.
Yeah,
They're not
but we
very
have no
friendly.
choice, right?
We have no choice. They're not very friendly. But I suppose part of it is also a learning curve for individuals because if I think about the Pearson example, like I was stuck behind some folks who just did not know how to operate the machine, which obviously made it take longer. And they usually have attendants around who will come over and try to help you. But uh, I suppose once everyone learns about it a bit more, they know how to operate it, then that is when we will actually gain the efficiency that those machines are meant for. Because they put them out there for that reason, right? They have them in sort of a kiosk style where everyone lines up in different areas. And the idea is you quickly go in, you enter your own info, you get your sticker, you attach it onto your luggage, and you're good to go. Um, so I'm sure when they initially did some of those studies, they found time saving. Um, but that time saving won't come in until people learn how to use the machine. And so maybe, something they can do is actually give people, make it one, easier to use, more intuitive, or two, maybe when you're, booking your ticket online, giving a little crash course on how to use it. I'm sure many people would find that very helpful. So that's interesting that we are sort of headed into this digitized, standardized world with the idea that it's going to save us time and allow us to enjoy life more. Um, so I think that's the other part of COVID, right? Is that people started to understand that life is fragile, that anything can happen, and that they needed to enjoy it, and that sort of there was a reinforcement in this work-life balance debate that's been going on for a while. um, People genuinely started to value their lives more and their time outside of work because they realized that anything can happen and
Mm.
that we need to enjoy life. So I think that's shifted some behaviors. It's definitely, I think, for the better because it's good to focus on yourself and to enjoy life because life is meant to be enjoyed. Um, but have you, when we think about, you already mentioned that the biggest change you've seen from COVID is the acceptance of technology. But I suppose a bit of neuroscience can help us here. Is that how can people adapt to technology more quickly? Like, are there certain uh, things that they can do to become more proficient besides just using it every day?
So it's not about neuroscience per se, but it's still about the role of customers in this process, because you mentioned that if you operate the machine for the first time, maybe you're losing the process. You don't know exactly what to do. You're stressed as well because okay, if I make a mistake, then I will probably lose my luggage or whatever. So, it's a bit anxious. It's a very anxious situation. But my perspective as a researcher is when I observe that, what is the role of the other customers who are waiting in the line? And my perspective on this, and that's also one of the research project I have at this time, is I consider the other customers as managers. They are here to control the quality of the service delivery. Because think about it. In the past, you have this company with frontline workers and managers. Managers can control the work of frontline workers, and frontline workers can control that consumers use, consume, buy the products as it should be. So they have this direct control over the behaviors of people. If they need help, they can bring help. If they need advice, they can give advice. If they do something wrong, they can ask politely to the customers to change their behaviors. You know what I mean? But if you're in front of a machine who has no conscience, no any type of interaction skills, then who is going to jump into the process to say, hey, you shouldn't use the machine like this. It's supposed to be like that. Well, it's the other customers. So customers will be more and more engaged in the process as managers to control the other customers, to be sure that they are using the machine properly. If you don't do it, or it's too long, they will help you or they will teach you how to use the machine. Now, let me just give you an example. Um, Sorry, I'm always taking the same example, but I think it's very interesting. Is when I was in Paris last summer, I was with my kids and I had to buy a metro ticket. So it was a long time since I didn't buy a metro ticket in Paris. So it's like Toronto. It's a huge city. Everybody's very busy. They are very impatient. You always have long lines everywhere and so on. So and I was struggling with the computer to find tickets because you have different zones in Paris. It's quite complicated. So I wanted to be sure that I will buy the right ticket. So I take my time. And there was a guy behind me. At some point, he said, "Look, I can help you if you want. Just to go faster." I said, "Okay, fine." And he knew exactly what to do. And he was doing the stuff for me. And he was explaining to me, "Okay, you should go there, select this and that. You have 2 kids. How it's the age of your kids? 4 and 7. Okay, so choose this ticket, blah, blah, blah." So it's like a manager. You're working in a factory. You're supposed to produce a certain amount of product.
Right.
And if you're too slow because you're a beginner, then the manager jump in and say, "Okay, look, it doesn't work like this. Do this, do that," and so on. So they are accepting to take this role of managing other customers and to control the service quality. If I give you another example, something that is very familiar, I think, we pretty much all have used at least once Uber Eats. Okay, you order food on Uber Eats. You're a consumer. Okay, so you are hungry, you're lazy as well, you don't want to go out, you have nothing to cook, so you order food online. Once the worker is in your home to deliver the food, the next thing you have to do on your Uber application is to evaluate the worker. So you evaluate if he was late, if he was on time, if the food was cold or hot or whatever, and then you grade the performance of the worker on a star system from 1 to 5. And you know that depending on the grade you will give to the worker, this worker can be kicked out of the system because the grade is too low, which means that the quality of the service is not satisfying. So I can't trust this worker, he has to go out. But who is deciding if the worker can still work for the company or no? It's you, the consumer. And you also decide what will be the salary of this worker because you decide the tips you want to give to the worker. So maybe you do it, in a way that is spontaneous. It's just part of the application, and you do it. That's it. But the consequences for the worker are pretty high. And when you do this, you're on a system, automated system, where there is no manager from Uber. There is no manager from Ubers on the field who are controlling the service quality of those workers. So who is controlling the service quality? Who can say that my experience with those workers, drivers, or whatever was fine? You, as a manager, would do it. So the thing is that I think we need to shift a little bit the way we perceive the role of consumers over the market. Consumers are not passive consumer. They are co-producer, and they will be also co-managers of the service production and the service delivery because of the machine.
Right. Well, I mean, Uber definitely has changed the landscape for food delivery and transportation. But while you were speaking about the clients or the customers who are waiting in line, they can also help manage. I was thinking, I suppose the other part of that is that you can make the machine smarter so that it interacts with you and says, okay, what do you need? Where do you want to go? And it sort of walks you through the process. And that would be helpful. And I guess that's where AI and ML come in, is to the more that that machine will interact with people, the more information that it'll gain, it'll become smarter and smarter in its decision making. So, for instance, it might realize that don't know, people down on Yonge and Dundas, the most popular place to go to is, Queens. They might go down to Queens Park. So it'll have like suggestions for you right at the top. Okay, here are some popular destinations. Are you going to any of these? And you can click on one of those and just sort of um augment the process and make things go along a bit faster, instead of that onus being on another individual that's also in the line.
Well, I think it depends on the value and the profit you can make with this type of interaction. If if the interaction is about giving advice and building this long-term relationship with customers to engage them with the company, with the brand and so on, that maybe company would be willing to invest in more smart system, who have this machine learning system. They can increase their capacity to have a, let's say, a smart discussion with customers and so on. But the examples I mentioned, like, registering the language, it doesn't bring any money to the company, so why would they invest in a smarter system if customers can do the work for free? That's my perspective on this. I think that artificial intelligence, machine learning, and all of those applications will be implemented in a situation in service interactions where we need to interact with people, because the service is about interaction, advices or stuff like this. But there are a lot of mechanical tasks, self-checkout system, registering languages and stuff like this. We don't want to talk to people. We just want to make them what they have to do as quickly as possible and to get out, because it's a matter of volume. It's a matter of efficiency. And if you start to talk to people, you're not efficient. You see, there is a study that's quite old now that's investigate the experience at the convenience store, and if customers and frontline workers tend to be polite or no. And the results show in convenience store, politeness is a burden because it takes time to ask people, how do you feel today? How is your day going? Blah, blah, blah. Because you engage in a conversation that is against the flow of customers coming to the convenience store. So we tend to erase all of those social interactions for the sake of efficiency. Hey, I scan the product, goodbye, and that's it. In a few seconds, it's done because you have other customers and you win money because of the volume of sales you do every day. So if the strategy is based on the value, because this interaction is valuable, because customers expect to have this interaction, then yes, they will probably develop smarter services. But if the strategy is volume and you just want to increase the volume of sales every day or stuff like this, then probably they will not invest in smarter services. And my guess is that in the future, premium customers will have access to human being interactions, and non-premium customers will have to deal with machines. Because even though the machine tends to increase at the organizational frontline, the human being interaction is still valuable. But it costs money because you have to hire people, you have to train them, you have to keep them motivated, you have to control the efficiency of their work and so on. So it costs money to the company. So if you want to have access to this type of service and type of interaction, you will have to pay for it. If you can't afford it, then you will have to interact with machine.
Right. Well, I suppose it'll also depend on what you're trying to do, because there are certain situations where you need a person,
Yeah.
and it's not very easy or feasible to do it with a machine. So I that just goes back to what we were talking about earlier with those sort of hybrid experiences where you're going to have certain experiences that just doesn't require a person. And again, people are becoming more and more digital, especially the new generation. They're digitally native, so for them, it's just a way of life. Like, and it's something they actually prefer more. Earlier today, we were having a conversation about just uh, people wanting to be able to do things on their own. Like, they don't want to socialize too much. They just want to be able to work from home, just be very digital, and have set their life the way they want to, essentially, right? Like, if they don't want to come in, they don't want to come in. They don't have to. They have the option of working remote. If they don't want to interact with, let's say, a teller when they go to a bank, they don't have to. They can go to the ATM machine. So it is providing clients with more choices in some aspect, because now they can choose what type of service they want to have.